I'm not even sure what I'm gonna say here. Um, I just want to talk loosely about a topic that's been on my mind for a while. Just this overall feeling. Um, been a lifelong experience for me, feeling like I have difficulty connecting to other people. Just being who I am, a different kind of person. uh, Weird, as they say, well, quote unquote, weird, strange person, which that in of itself is an alienating experience. If I just think over the course of my life, there's been such a void there. Whether it was just as far back as I can remember, in school, groups, church, theater, family, even friendships, roommates, co-workers, and of course, social media. I don't always get connection right. And there's so much irony in my case, I guess, because I'm very knowledgeable and resourceful and thoughtful and understanding and self-aware and this kind of stuff. Like, I've studied media and communications, and I write a lot about connection and love and health and well-being and, different things throughout my life that you would think, boy, this person should have it down, which I don't. I think it's often this is not really a side of me that I've made public all that often. The me where really feels abandoned and neglected, and some would refer to it as toxic or needy or attention seeking. But the feeling I'm talking about is, after the applause, after having attended a social gathering, and then I come back to the silence, the quiet. I can't say it's always been easy for me, as a self-proclaimed hermit and recluse. That's partly something I identify with, is, being this kind of person tucked away somewhere where you can't find me. People that have been, part of my life and, we've met from time to time, they know that I prefer my alone time, of course, but then I turn around and say how lonely I feel. As I've gotten older, I find I'm not as good at reaching out as I once was. Well, it's a complex thing. It's like sometimes I feel I don't want to be a bother to anybody with my problems, and also that there's this underlying feeling that it's just not going to work, that it's going to fall through. And so what's the point in trying to reach anybody when there's just no relationship there? And, so-and-so just wasn't there for me when I was really going through it. When you've lived a life where you've tried so hard to defend yourself or explain the different things you're going through, it actually, from my experience, it becomes harder as an adult, even just to want to reach out and trust that they're not going to delay and postpone conversation, or that they're not going to take something you've said and really put salt on a wound and dig in deep and, like twisting a knife, use your own words against you as well. I'm sure there are other people who can relate to this, and as time has gone on, I find it's become more difficult to make those authentic, meaningful, genuine, sincere connections. But it was sort of already like that for me when I was a kid. I remember that. Just really not, I didn't enjoy school, really. I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't belong. I felt the same in workplaces. I know I've talked about this on my channel before too, and I think that it's kind of central. As much that I'm a pensive person, I think that this idea that I'm sort of just this idea of this kind of lone person just forever walking in the distance and never really finding what I set out to do. I don't know how else to say that. I don't know what you call it. It's a hermit, and that I know I am a different person, and I always have been, and so much of my different things I've tried to do over the years, and I've tried to do so many different things with writing and videos and songs and just so much that I've felt, even still after like 15 years of doing all of this. Actually, there's even more that's predated anything that I've done over the past 15 years. I've been really, if I think about it, since I was 10 years old, I've been a creative spirit and an old soul. And it's really not been an easy path for me. I can't say that I've felt it. I was doing it my way, though it might have looked like it. It's been doing it the hard way. And I've made it through, and I don't want to suggest that everything about my life is so bad, because it isn't. I do have connections that have sustained me. My art has sustained me, and I think some general sense of hope and healing has kept me. But there's always been this, sort of boy interrupted or little boy blue that sort of followed me throughout my life. I think that sort of goes along with the rhythm and blues idea, that there is some honest blues there in my life that isn't a put on. It's just something that I've felt lately, like, not just during the pandemic and all the stuff about the pandemic, but I think just throughout the 2010s even, it's just been a steady sort of decline of feeling I could really connect, and just how much that hurts to feel that sort of everything in society and culture today feels so cheapened, and you just come back with this empty feeling. And I think for those of us that deal with anxiety, depression, mental health issues, and addictions, I think a lot of us, and I certainly can say, I was born in this world with a void inside me. I wasn't born with esteem and confidence of myself, and there was always something missing in my life. And so I spent most of my life, now as I'm turning 32, realizing I spent so much of my life trying to fill that hole in my heart, in my soul, and coming up empty. And that, it's like I can't sit here today and think that it's all me, it's all my fault. Andrew's to blame for everything that he did in his life. Well, on these topics of individual responsibility, personal responsibility, of course I agree with a lot of that. At the same time, I do think it's more nuanced and more complex than that there has to be some kind of mutual give and take there. There needs to be some sort of reciprocation. If I'm to do things in the world and in society, it's very one-sided, and I know I'm not alone in that, where there are folks that feel, it does feel like, it's like no matter what you do, well, I'll speak for myself, that, I feel like I've been up against these barriers. People don't want to follow through, and they don't want to take things any further, and I felt very isolated by that. And to some degree, I understand it as somebody that's been through a lot, and people feel they don't know what to do, they don't know what to say. I don't want to say the wrong thing if or I get into an argument about that, or he does things I don't agree with, so then we'll get into this, or he sounds like he knows what he's doing, so I don't. I've felt throughout my life just sort of sectioned off to Andrew, there's your little space to be, and we're just going to ignore you and neglect you and not pay any attention to it. Yeah, it's an isolating feeling. It's a lonely feeling when you are, and lonely in the sense that it's not, I mean, you have to understand biology and history of humanity, and that it's an actual sense of pain, and to continually watch, to observe yourself continually feeling neglected, and that I've really had to work a lot on my own boundaries, personal boundaries, and dealing with me oversharing and being me having to watch my own attachment issues and insecurities, trying to create healthy narratives in my mind. But I can say it's difficult to do when, I still feel this world. On the surface, there's just so much that baffles my mind. It just doesn't really make sense because of the insincerity, and that we live in a world now where there is a loss of community, and you don't really have those pillars in neighborhoods and communities to go to and feel like you truly belong somewhere. And people try to supplement it with, well, unhealthy habits or just other things that isn't enough to nourish the soul. I remember even pre-pandemic, there were weeks that would go by where I would only talk to the barista at the coffee shop, and I would think that, well, okay, maybe that's all you get. So I'm gonna watch my emotions right now. So you just wonder, how could a person, I don't want to pity parade or feel sorry for myself. It's just that if I know it happens to me, it happens to people who are vulnerable, like elderly people, even children, young people, I know that experience because I've had that. I'm talking weeks where you just think there's no calls, there's no email, there's no text message, there's no interaction on social media, there's nothing that comes in. And you just hang on a hope for that gathering you might attend, or maybe once you work up the courage to go out to a bar somewhere by yourself. But I can't, it's sad to me to describe that experience of in this digital age that I could think going to the coffee shop and having that short, brief interaction with a barista was connection. I just want to sit with that for a second, and I want whoever's watching to sit with that for a minute. That in this supposed society where we're supposed to be more connected than ever, you have so many options of these niche social platforms, and you got your tech giants where most people kind of seem to want to hang out. You have all these things going on, but yet a really true story like mine could play out. And sometimes that could be for a very good reason. It could be it's just a fact of life. Sometimes people get busy. As somebody in his early 30s, I have friends now that are married, or they have children, or they've moved away, and that's all fair and fine. The epidemic of loneliness in society is that's something that continues to this day, and is worse now. I first started researching that back in 2018 when I really dug into it. And I can't really say anything's gotten better about it. But, there are folks that if it's not part of your life, it's not an easy cycle to get out of. And, once you deal with like a depression or anxiety, just that feeling of loneliness, it feeds off of itself. I just want to put it out there that indeed there are aspects of our society and online cultures that, the emotional roller coaster you go through during any given day, it's a lot to make you, at the end of the day, when you are resting your head on your pillow, you're just left with such this emptiness. And that it shouldn't be like that. That's not how humans are wired. You really do sit and think. Well, I sit and think, what are people doing? What are you doing to make everything feel so impossible? I'm not talking about a big, tall order here. It's like, it's not going to kill you to, check in with somebody or, I think there's a lot of overthinking that goes on, even on my part, of liking something that you see on social media or sharing something because you're afraid, oh, that's going to reflect on me or whatever. You know what? You liking something, that might mean the world to that person that day. Or you just saying a hello, that could mean a lot in somebody's life. Or hey, I'm sorry that we've fallen out of touch. I have a minute to chat. I'm wondering if we could chat, or hey, this is just a message to see how things are. And I don't think that we can as a society solely rely on our news feeds to think that that's nourished our loved ones and our family and our friends, and think that that's all there is to share. It's like, I don't know. I think there is a definite sense I have that, I've known it for years now, that communications in general now are very unhealthy. People's sense of a healthy communication is very twisted and distorted. And it's like, all there is to some folks' lives, unfortunately. And I don't want this to come off in a very negative way, but there is more to life than just work and coming home and getting up and doing the same thing again and shutting out everybody to just work and sleep and eat, and that's all you do. I'm sorry, but that's not, that just doesn't fly for me. And I get it that in this particular period of increased unease in the world, there's a lot of unhappiness, people are less peaceful, there's a lot of hatred and violence, and an increase in poverty, and the standard of living has gone down, down, down. That it's something that I don't think is acceptable. To a point, I understand that you can't get to everything because you're experiencing a really overwhelming feeling of all the decisions you have to make throughout the day. I understand decision fatigue. To really get into this sort of space of not communicating in a way that resembles a healthy community, or just a fulfilled, thriving person, to really move so far away from all of that, any sense of that, to this really just shortchanging not only ourselves but other people in our lives, is very sad. I really look around at the world, and people who know me, that I think a lot. I enjoy thinking. It's something that I do like to do. Just as somebody observing the world today, it really hurts me to see a social species, just so far removed from who we are. Just so far away from a sense of ourselves, of giving to others in a way that makes sense, and understanding that we are interdependent on each other. So far away from nature, and so involved in myths and these beliefs and opinions of, things that just aren't even real. And I'm sorry. It's like, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings on here, but, these ideas of like alpha male, alpha female, alpha person. I've heard it for years and years of this stuff. Alpha is a term that came out of scientific literature and was twisted and perverted, distorted into this idea of this superhero, and you're really strong and aggressive and king of the castle, whatever. And it's like, that's not what was meant by the word alpha. Alpha just means, I can hear myself getting very fired up here. I'm sorry. Alpha just meant leader. That's all that meant. A leader can be somebody of a variety of personality traits and characteristics. That's all. Alpha does not mean that you're eating all kinds of meat and running marathons and you have to be some boss CEO or something. Like, does everybody need to be a business person? Apparently you do. Because otherwise, if you're not a millionaire by now, you must be a failure, loser, stupid, lazy person. That's something. That right there, like I'm saying, the myth of if you don't have it all, you're not keeping up with the Joneses, and you're not being, I don't even know what that is, some caricature off in fantasy land, then you're not allowed to participate in society? What's going on, man? I really do think it's like people need to give their head a shake. Give your head a shake. So therefore you're going to ignore and get into a big thing with everybody because they're not looking like some kind of myth in your mind? Doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, so that's my tangent for now. Of course, I end up going back to the alpha male thing. I know I've talked about that a lot on my channel. I'm sorry, but it's so pervasive. And it's like, that's not at all what that means. There are very highly influential people that have existed throughout history that had nothing to do with that at all. Nothing. And there are people now, you're using inventions every day that were created by people who might have been actually a highly sensitive person, a very intuitive person, a very intelligent person, and had nothing to do with some crazy idea that you saw. Sorry, that's a judgment on my part. I won't use the word crazy, but some idea that might be for some people, it's not for me. But from something that you saw online without any evidence, and that colors your world. I don't think it's right. And as well as I don't think it's right that everybody has to be so consumed into work environments, work cultures, and constantly, that's all your life is corporate jargon and professionalization of everything. So you don't professionalize everything. You don't need to profit off of everything. And that's where people get all kinds of confused with me, because somebody would look at a piece of content I'm making like this, and so they would just want to block me because they're like, well, he's not producing any results. He's not getting far enough in his life. It's like, but that's not how I think. I don't think like that. That's a certain cultural conditioning that I just haven't fallen into. I consider myself a rebel in that sense. Just, I'm swimming upstream, really, on that point. Boy, it's just the conditioning can drive me wild, because it's like, well, that's part of the reason that a person like myself, and a reason why vulnerable people in this day and age find it so hard to connect, is because the herd is so consumed by ideas like that of, yeah, workplace culture and toxic positivity and overdose motivation, and they just don't even stop to realize personal responsibility and everything, and thinking that, they're so high and mighty. You see, part of my process is very much is feeling. I'm allowing myself the space to feel, and I guess to some it's rambling nonsense, it's venting, and that's just part of who I am, how I get through stuff. And I err on the side that there's that one or two people who will watch this, who will appreciate it, because they don't have a language. They can't even articulate it. They feel it. It's like, why am I having such a difficulty connecting? Well, some of that has to do with you, and I get that. Some of it has to do with me, but I do think, like I'm saying, there is quite a cheapened experience, a very empty experience in this current digital age. And, like anybody, I still have that desire to make connections, and I just want to put it out there that, yes, you're not alone, and it is very challenging. It's very difficult, especially when, as I say, communications are or have become very unhealthy at this time. I just wish through and through, in my heart, through my being, through my soul, that people can heal from the long-term effects of the pandemic and the consequences that we're dealing with currently. And I do hope for the ways that people can reconnect in ways that make sense, and perhaps rekindle some relationships, or renew, or finding new energies and different ways of going about things. But it's no question that it's been difficult to make those connections in this sort of, for lack of a better way to say it, this dystopian nightmare that we've created for ourselves. Some of it can be good, the social media and stuff. A lot of it's regurgitation. It's people posting the same things over and over. I don't really see that it has changed all that much in recent years, and I don't think it's going to change that much, because tech companies are having too much of a good time just having people recycle and go through the same thing over and over again. There's nothing innovative that's happened with social media, really, in the past couple of years here. It's the same thing over and over. It's like opening up a fridge expecting to see something new in there. There's nothing. You're coming back empty. It's the same things. And that can be frustrating in of itself, because you're looking for that richness, that real satiation, and just looking for that fulfillment in some sense, where you're not getting it in real life, and boy, that has a lot to do with I think, just generally speaking, bad habits, a lot of bad habits that individuals practice. And just as a society, I just think that there's a lot of things here I think we had to do to get through the pandemic, but I don't think right now a lot of folks have really let that go, myself included. I want to grow as a person and develop and mature, and I think that what I'm exercising here is just awareness, and Anyway, that's my conversation for today. If you have any thoughts on that, or feelings or anything, feel free to leave a comment below. I just wish you very well if you've watched this to the end and it's something you can comprehend. God bless you. I just wish you very well, and yeah, take care. Bye for now.